A little catch up on this 014 PECKETT with its scratch built chassis to fit under a Right Lines PECKETT Gamecock PECKETT body kit. Now, since you last saw it, I've done a few things. Primarily, I have made some slide bars. Now, these slide bars, they needed to be 1mm square nickel silver. I thought I had some 1mm square nickel silver in stock. As it transpired, I didn't, and neither did Eileen's Emporium. I then had a slight brainwave because I'm very lucky in the kit I have in the Stepcraft, and I thought I would mill them out of 1mm thick sheet. But instead of milling them as individual slide bars, I milled them in an elongated U shape. So a U along, up and along, and that U being spaced apart exactly the width of the crosshead. Now, in doing that, it means that fixing them becomes very, very much easier because, of course, they're jigged to the right spacing. And so all you've got to do is poke them in the cylinder ends, like that. And of course, the motion bracket is already made to accept them at the right dimension. So it's simply a matter of poking, I can't gesture to it, while enabling you to see, unfortunately. It's simply a matter of introducing this slide bar U shape into the right position, and then I silver soldered the ends at the motion bracket onto the motion bracket itself. And when that was done, I was able simply to snip the vertical part of the U off, leaving me with precisely positioned slide bars. Now, those people who know me know I really like silver soldering. Silver soldering gives you a very, very strong joint. And if you use silver solder paste, it says here reaching to find some silver solder paste. Now, silver solder paste comes like that. And this is an easy grade. So this melts at about 650 degrees C. This paste is a flux and the silver solder combined. So just clean up the metal you want to silver solder, apply a little bit of paste and heat it up with a torch. And all being well, you get this lovely joint, this lovely strong joint. However, you will also have seen from the previous video and from this that we have here these cylinder end covers. Now, these cylinder end covers, and indeed the cylinders themselves, are white metal castings. Now, white metal melts at a very low temperature, and the idea of silver soldering these slide bars at 650 degrees with a torch means you will inevitably melt these white metal castings into an incongruous blob in about 1.5 seconds. So it's something you wouldn't do. However, again, we have some magic, and this magic is this stuff, if I can get it far enough away from the camera. Now this is what we colloquially call cool paste. And it's like toothpaste. You wouldn't want to put it in your mouth, but it's like toothpaste. And where you have a situation like this, where you want to silver solder something or just heat something up to a high temperature, but it is only 10 mil away from something that will get badly damaged if it gets hot, you apply plenty of this cool paste to it and cover anything that's likely to get damaged, and then you can set about your silver soldering with impunity, and you can make a good job of quickly silver soldering it, and you won't damage your in this instance white metal casting, or it could be a precious gemstone or what have you, as this will conduct the heat away and preserve your precious whatever intact. And this stuff is what I used to do this job. So I covered the white metal castings in this cool paste, and then silver soldered the slide bars that are maybe 20 mil away from the silver solder. And of course, the silver solder melts at 650 degrees. The blowtorch I was using was probably putting out about 900, maybe 1,000 degrees. And this white metal that melts at, 150 degrees or something like that, maybe a bit less, was absolutely fine. So cool paste is a wonderful thing to have in your cupboard for occasional use and getting yourself out of trouble. And that enabled me to silver solder these slide bars up when I had vulnerable white metal nearby. Now, I was then able to fit the conn rods to this and the crossheads, and of course, because it's all CNC'd, they come out beautifully accurately. So once this lot was assembled, it just ran beautifully, as I said at the last video, and indeed attaching the conn rods hasn't inhibited the free running at all. I would point out with this, if you look at this view, you'll notice that the conn rods are parallel to the frames. They don't taper in towards the back axle. They don't on a real loco. There's lots of engineering reasons why they don't taper in. It would be very, very bad for the engine. So I always keep my conn rods parallel to the frames and to the coupling rods, and put a little spacer on the rear crank pin if it's necessary. Now the axle boxes I restrained by using a little bit of nickel silver wire, one piece of nickel silver wire bent into all sorts of funny shapes. Seeing if I can get something to point here. Yeah. Now you'll see a block here, silver soldered to the inside the frames. This has a hole running through it, and then nickel silver wire runs underneath the bearings, one on each bearing, and then is bent up at the middle and back down and along again, and then is just restrained with a little dab of epoxy just above there, and now it's all painted. You can't see it, of course, but one piece of nickel silver on each side holds the axle boxes, so I can lift it without all the wheels falling off. And of course you can see the rocking there. So that's how the chassis has evolved in the last however long. I've started having a look at the body. Now, you saw the kit of parts, white metal. That's how that has progressed today. Let me move that. Can't see that at the moment. There we go. Don't worry about that. That's just a flux stain on the front spectacle sheet. Now, last time round, I took wet and dry to all the panels to smooth them off a bit, because of course it's much easier to do when they're flat panels. I also, before I try assembling, I have a look at all the edges and all the joints and get them to mate up as cleanly as I can before I actually attack it with the soldering iron, so I can be sure I'm going to get a nice joint. This one didn't take much doing. However, of course, some kits and some castings, that can take quite a bit of time to dress the edges until you get a nice joint. As I say, this one wasn't too bad. I did take some time now, first of all, of course, this one, there's a sub-assembly of the front spectacle plate and the two cab side sheets, and those are soldered into a triumvirate before they were soldered onto the sol bar. I use Carr's low melt solder on this, and with Carr's red flux, and it goes well with a temperature controlled iron. I took great care to get as closed a joint as I could, and I sort of tack one bit and then tack the other end and make sure the ends are good, and then tack the middle and press it, and if necessary undo it until I'm happy with it. So I take time to get a good joint, because otherwise, if you don't get a good joint, you'll have to live with it forever, and I don't want to do that. So I want to get the joint as good as I can at the earliest stage, and I run solder up the back with enough heat to let it penetrate. There are rivets, so there's a limit to what I can do to draw the solder through with heat. Where I also, at the early stage of soldering, make sure they are neatly at right angles to each other using a square. You don't want to go too far with tacking before you check for squareness. When I had the three soldered together to my satisfaction, again using a square, I then soldered them to the sol plate, ensuring that they were equidistant apart and everything was nice and vertical. So it's a check all the way, and solder to, if you like, the invisible side. And it's not made too bad a job of all that. Now, as I've said from the word go, this is going to be a radio control job, and the only place I've got to put the battery is within the saddle tank. Now, these batteries don't last forever, and at some stage it'll need replacing, which means that I've got to be able to access the battery and therefore the tank. So having to do something slightly different, so the tank assembly is splittable. So this is how I've decided to do it. The bottom of the boiler barrel is staying as part of this assembly, and in order to support it, I've just added a little sprue, little bar, what have you, to carry the front of the lower barrel, so that doesn't spring about, as it were. It's securely soldered everywhere I can on that. The tank support plates, can't really see, but they are there. These tank support plates, I've had to put a little bit of reinforcement so they're actually carried on this rather than on the tank top, and that'll do. That'll be strong enough for that. And then this assembly is obviously slotted to take that new tab I've put in, and then the battery will happily fit in this zone and in that zone. I might be able to get a 500 milliampere hour battery in there. We will see. But one way or another, that's reasonably satisfactory. Again, all the way down the line, making sure that things are square and tight, and being aware to solder from the inside of a joint, and keeping things nice, cozy and tight, and being neat all the way. What I don't want to do is get solder on any of the rivets. It's hard to rescue submerged rivet detail. So I do very much try and keep that clean. There's a chimney that will go on in there. That one's a little bit more cleaning up, but ever so importantly, and I've got a real bee in a bonnet about it, I will drill out the chimney. Not all the way down, but at least down half an inch or something. I don't like looking at models and you see the painted, blanked off image that I'm showing there. So I always drill the chimney out. Real chimneys are cast, slightly cleaned up, so I won't get too anal about it, but that'll all be all right. So it's coming on nicely. The really difficult things have, I think, been sorted now, but there's a lot of fiddling still to be done on the thing. But it'll make a very nice little loco, and I think it was a very nice kit of its time, undoubtedly, and I'm quite pleased to have such nice clean castings, and I'm not sure which layout this will work on, but I'm looking forward to having it chuffing up and down, and especially having it independently powered by radio control as opposed to relying on two-rail pickup. So nice progress. I'm pleased with that. As always, I hope it's of some interest. All the best.